part of it is opening up the eyes of the customer, looking at the problem in maybe a different perspective or maybe a different way, introducing some concepts that maybe they never thought about. So most sales pitches do not have a section of the pitch that specifically covers discovery. So if you look at when marketing builds a sales pitch, they literally will have this pitch, and if you look at it, you'd be like, well, where does the discovery happen? And marketing's like, I don't know, that's some weird sales thing. Like, maybe they do that before? And that's a crazy way to think about discovery. Discovery should be something that's woven in to the actual narrative of the pitch itself.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show, brought to you by SaaStock, the conference that helps SaaS companies get traction, growth, and scale. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and I'll be looking at what it really takes to build and grow a SaaS company today, and how founders and entrepreneurs stay healthy on the journey. Now on with the show.
Welcome, April, to a live edition of the SaaS Revolution Show podcast. I'm Alex Theuma, CEO founder of SaaStock. We are here at SaaStock 2023 in Dublin again. April, how many SaaStocks have you done?
A lot of SaaStocks, like SaaStocks. Maybe four. This might be my fourth, maybe?
Almost all the SaaStocks. So that's a good number, 4. I think Patrick Campbell is at like 6, but he's broken. Now he's sold his business. He's not here, so he doesn't care.
So he
anymore.
Broke the streak. He's not here this year.
Sell your company for 200 million. You don't need to come back to SaaStock.
Yeah.
Have you sold a company for 200 million? Yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to talk about that. April, thank you for coming here. You spoke at the Scale stage, which was great. It was absolutely packed. I only saw like 2 words of it. But
were they good though, those 2 words?
They were amongst the best 2 words that I've heard at the conference.
Great. I think the 2 words were sales pitch.
But I promise you, I will watch the video afterwards where we publish it, and I'll confirm. But sales pitch then, right? So you know, we know you. I know you as the positioning person.
Yeah.
You wrote the book. Obviously awesome on positioning, one of the best books on positioning. There's not that many, but it's one of the best.
There's not that many, but it's one of the best. Of those 2 books.
It is. Has anyone read April's book? Well, that's pretty good.
I love it. Hello.
Pretty good. I do quick math. That's like 100% of the audience there. I was never very good at maths at school, but now you're doing a book on sales pitches. Why?
Well, so here's why. So I've worked now as a consultant with over 200 companies, and specifically we're focused on the positioning. And here's the issue. When we do the positioning work, marketing is usually happy because as part of the positioning work, we're defining the differentiated value, which is, what's the value we can provide that no one else can. And so marketing's happy. They can run off and go build messaging with that. Sales, when they're in the room while we're doing the positioning, sales is like, this is good. Yes, I agree with all of this. And then 2 weeks later, if you go look at what they're pitching, they're not pitching any of it. They're just talking about features. They're doing a feature function walkthrough. And you're like, what the heck just happened? And they're like, well, we understand the positioning. We just don't know how to pitch it. Like, we don't actually know how to weave a story around that. And so when I wrote Obviously Awesome, I assumed that there was sales pitch structures out there that companies use to build their sales pitch with. And it turns out there actually isn't one. So every single company I worked with, when we went to do the translation of the positioning to the new sales pitch, like their sales pitches were just kind of the Wild West. Like it was either just feature, or it would be, we're going to have a couple of slides that introduce the company and a slide with all our customers on it, and maybe a slide that talks about the problem, and then we do feature. And I'm like, wow, nobody actually has a structure to do this. So I have a structure that I was using back when I was a vice president of marketing internally. So I started doing that with my clients, because if we just left after the positioning piece, it would never survive the jump to sales. If it didn't survive the jump to sales, then it wasn't actually becoming real for customers. So in the workshops I do now, we do the positioning bit, then we translate it into the sales pitch. And what I was noticing is every time we did this sales pitch thing, my customers are looking at me like, what just happened there? Like, that's amazing. Like, how did you build that thing? And I thought, wow, okay, maybe we need a book that teaches you how to take your positioning and translate it into the sales pitch. So that's what the new book is all about.
Very cool, and it is out now, right?
It is. It's 2 weeks. It's brand new.
So you didn't give me enough time to read it because I read one book a year. No, I'm joking. I read more than that.
It's really short. It's easy. Audiobook will come in a couple months, and then you don't even have to read.
Are you reading the audiobook? Is that your voice?
Okay. It's going to be me, my glorious Canadian accent for hours and hours.
I'll listen to that. You say a boot.
A boot. The who's.
Yeah. So instead of feature, then, like, what is it? What should you be doing?
So, if you look at our positioning, like the key to our positioning, the answer to the question, why pick us over the other guys, is our differentiated value. So that's the value we can deliver for customers that no one else can. So what we really need to do in a sales pitch is answer that question. That's why the customer is there. They're not just looking at you, they're looking at you and 3-4 other companies. And so what they want in that sales pitch is the answer to the question. Why should I pick you? And so if we really want to answer that question, what we have to do is communicate our differentiated value. Now, most companies, the differentiated value, if you just talk about it on its own, it needs a little context for customers to really, really get it. So this morning I gave an example of Help Scout. And so the thing with Help Scout is, if you just look feature function, they look like every other customer service software out there, more or less. Like, it doesn't really answer the question just looking at the features. But if they explain to you, well, we were built for digital businesses, and we think digital businesses care about customer success in a different way because customer success is a growth driver rather than a cost center. And so if we believed that customer success was a growth driver, we would build that software differently. And so if I have a little preamble with this, then the customers understand how to contextualize their differentiated value. So in my sales pitch structure, there's a setup and a follow-through. The setup is where we talk about our insight into the market, how we see the market differently than anyone else does. We talk about the whole market, pros and cons of all the different approaches to the solution, and then we get sort of an agreement with the customer on, like, hey, can we agree that if we really wanted to do this well, a company like you would need a solution that ticks these boxes? If the customer says yes, then we move to our stuff, and we're saying, look, we can provide you this differentiated value. There's 3 points. Here's the value we provide. These are the features that enable that value. Here's the value we provide. Here's the features that enable it. Here's the value. Here's the features. That is a sales pitch that's designed to answer the question, why pick us over everybody else? Because we're actually positioning our product in the market and helping people understand why we built the thing we built the way we built it.
I've heard from quite a few founders over the last few days that it's been a challenging year. They're finding it hard to sell. Marketers aren't buying, especially if they're selling to marketers. Missing targets. A bit of this sort of rhetoric over the last 24 hours, right? In the challenging market, and if you're struggling to sell your products, I'm sure having a better sales pitch should help you, right?
But what if easy, low-hanging fruit? If you think about it, you already generating this pipeline, you already have people going to your sales team, that stuff is flowing through. What's your conversion rate now from first call to opportunity? It's probably garbage because your sales pitch is garbage.
She wasn't looking at anyone in particular.
I'm just saying, most of the companies that come to me, they have this sales pitch that is nobody's ever thrown it out. It's been around since the year of the flood. And every time somebody does a little new release or a little thing, we're clomming something else on there. One slide gets added. Nobody's ever stood back and said, is this good? Are we telling a good story here? Is this a compelling story here? Nobody's rationalizing that. So that we stress out so much about every little word on the homepage, and we're A/B testing everything, and we're freaking out about our product-led growth, onboarding, blah, blah, blah. Things go over to sales, and we're just we're Teflon. We're whatever. I don't know what happens over there. Some kind of magic thing happens over there. It's crazy. So the companies I work with, we tighten up the positioning, and it's a while before that positioning gets implemented because I'm going to have to write messaging around that, forklift the homepage, and it's a while before all that messaging makes it into campaigns. Sales pitch, we can turn that on tomorrow. It's such low-hanging fruit if you're in a situation like we are right now, where every deal that flows through is precious. why wouldn't you be scrutinizing what happens at that exact moment when the deal leaves marketing and it's now in sales, and this introduction to like, who are we and why should we stay on the short list? If we fumble that, we got nothing downstream from that. Imagine if we could tighten that up and get people to the next step of our sales process better. Like, easy.
And in terms of like the sales pitch itself, I mean, is there any like within the books like a rule of thumb of like how long it should be, and how much listening versus talking that you do, etc.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of really interesting data about this. So first of all, typical sales pitch, it depends on the company, and so it depends on how complex the product is, how long their sales pitches are. Some people do half-hour first call pitches, some people do 45 minutes, some people do an hour. I don't think the length of it changes. I think if we want to do a really good sales pitch, we do need this little setup piece where we're contextualizing what we're talking about, rather than just going straight to features. But we don't actually want to stay there all day. We want to spend the bulk of the sales pitch talking about our differentiated value and how we get that done. That's what the customer wants to know. That's what the customer is there for. But we really need to do this little setup bit. So most of the customers that I work with, the setup bit is not particularly long. So if I think about the two companies that I mentioned on stage today, one is Help Scout and the other one's Level Jump. Help Scout does it, if you look at their sales pitch, it's a handful of slides at the very beginning. If they have a 45-minute pitch, they're spending 5-10 minutes on that, and that's it. And then we're moving on to the follow-through stuff. Level Jump, when they were really good at this, before they got acquired, were spending like literally 90 seconds on the setup, because the setup was so powerful, and it was enough to get everybody to go, yeah, never really thought about that. How do you measure that? Yeah, you're right. We should measure that. Okay, show us how you do that. And that's it. On the second part of your question, like how much talking should we be doing, there's a handful of things that I think are very poorly understood outside of sales that sales really understands. So one of those is discovery. So what we do in a first call is generally the customer has been qualified already in some way. So either the product qualified them, or you had some kind of qualification, or you had inside sales do a call and do qualification. And qualification is just making sure, should a rep even bother spending an hour with this person? So, do they potentially have the budget? Am I talking to the right person? Do they have a need that we can actually satisfy? So they're already lightly qualified usually before we get to first call. One of the key things you need to do in first call is discovery. So what discovery is it's a two-way process between the rep and the customer, where we're getting a deeper understanding of the customer's situation. What are they doing now? What have they tried before? What are other things that might work or might not work? What are their constraints if they have any? But part of what we're doing in discovery is teaching. So part of it is opening up the eyes of the customer, looking at the problem in maybe a different perspective or maybe a different way, introducing some concepts that maybe they never thought about. So most sales pitches do not have a section of the pitch that specifically covers discovery. So if you look at when marketing builds a sales pitch, they literally will have this pitch, and if you look at it, you'd be like, well, where does the discovery happen? And marketing's like, I don't know, that's some weird sales thing. Like, maybe they do that before. And that's a crazy way to think about discovery. Discovery should be something that's woven in to the actual narrative of the pitch itself. So my structure has that. Good sales pitches have that, where we are doing discovery, and it's a key part of what we're talking about. If I have this setup piece, it is a very good place to do discovery, because I'm saying, hey, I'm a Help Scout. Hey, did you ever really think about the fact that we look at customer service in a different way than traditional help desk software? So we see it as a growth driver. So, when we look at what our customers are doing, they usually start with a shared inbox, and then they migrate to help desk software. Does that resonate with you? Are you using a shared inbox right now? Did you think that was easy for your reps to do? Then did you consider help desk software? What did you think about that? So I'm doing discovery, but it's baked into the setup and the structure of the pitch.
Just one more question from me, and I'm actually, and I hadn't planned this, but I want to, because we've got a nice audience here.
Yeah, somebody had a question.
We're going to give you the opportunity to answer some questions, or ask some questions, to April, which will be live on the podcast. So please do say your name and your question, your great question as well. So would you, apart from being obviously awesome, would you categorize yourself as a consultant, or how would you position yourself in There's a question. How do you position yourself?
Yeah, so I think of myself as a consultant.
Yeah.
Like the bulk of the work I do is with B2B tech companies that
Yeah.
have a sales force. So they come to me, and what they're looking at is they really want to tighten up their positioning, meaning tightening up like, who exactly do we compete with? How are we different? What is the value that we can deliver that no one else can? Who exactly is a really good fit customer for this, and how do we define that? And what is the market category that we intend to win? And then we take that and we translate it into a sales pitch, partly so that we can test the positioning, but also because we need a sales pitch for the sales team to use that reflects the positioning that we just developed.
Do we have many consultants in the audience? 1, 2, 100% audience consultants there.
No, I don't sell to consultants.
No, I know.
Competition.
But the next question was going to be, so writing the book, obviously awesome, and now kind of writing this book, strategically, like how beneficial is that for you, for your business, and should other consultants, like everybody in the audience,
not everybody. It's
I know,
like 3. Come on, man.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
But yeah,
it's not a consultant conference.
For me, writing the book was a game changer. Like the way I thought about it was that most of the folks I'm selling to, which are CEOs of B2B tech companies, positioning is kind of a new concept for them. And so if they would come to me, they would see me speak at a conference like this,
like
and then they'd call me, like SaaStock. So they see me on stage at SaaStock, and then they call me and they say, hey, like that really resonated with me, that positioning thing you were talking about. How would we go about fixing it? And then I would have to explain the methodology and how it works and how we're going to do it. And it was kind of a long conversation, and they'd be taking notes, but then they'd call me back a week later and they're like, do it again. Like, tell me again how this works, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I just had a blog post or something and I could say, read that. That's the whole thing written down. You don't have to take notes. You can just go look at that thing. Here's how you do it. And then I started writing the blog post, and I was like, oh man, this is more than a blog post. Like, this is actually a book. And then I thought, okay, well, a book would be great, because then, maybe some of my customers would read the book before they come to me, and then they have a deep understanding of the thing, and they sell themselves. Like, either you agree with it or you don't. If you don't call me. If you agree, call. And then I also thought it would be good for smaller, earlier stage companies that aren't even, the CEOs are not even paying themselves. They're not going to pay a consultant to come fix it. And I thought, well, they could self-serve, use the thing, and it would be a useful thing for other folks to have. Because I was doing a lot of coffee meetings with early stage guys that not gonna hire me. So that was the idea. What's cool about the book for my business, so I released the book in 2019, and since then my business has really changed in terms of how people find out about me. Like, it used to be they would find me through referral. I work with one CEO, and they'd be in a CEO group somewhere, and they talk about my awesome stuff, and then 3-4 of those people would call me. Now I get calls from complete strangers, and the cool thing is that they've read the book, they're already sold. Like, I don't have to sell anybody on anything. They just call me and they're like, we want that thing. When can you do it? How much does it cost? These are the questions. So writing a book, worked out good for me.
Good. Anyone got a book in them? No. Almost. We got a question in the audience here. I'm gonna come over.
Somebody have a question? Is there a question? Oh, we got a question.
Hi, April.
Hello.
Zoe here
Hello.
from Licaire. I'm a super fan since yesterday from your workshop.
Oh, great.
I was wondering, do you have like a community of customers who have successfully implemented that in these pitches, and would they share their pitches so one can get an inspiration of how it looks into practice? Or is it in your book or on your website?
Yeah. So
to get a look and feel.
Yeah, great question. So the bad thing about sales pitches is not everybody wants to share their pitch, right? Like, some of them, and they're like they're okay with talking about the positioning at a high level, whatever, but they don't necessarily want their competitors to know how they position them. But I did get 5 companies to agree to share their sales pitch and how they do it in the book. So if you read the new book, there's 5 case studies in there that explain it. 2 of them are Level Jump and Help Scout, but there's a handful of others. One of them that's really good is Postman. They're one of my favorite companies. And so they're big, venture-backed. I don't even want to call them a startup. They're too big to be a startup. But in Silicon Valley. And they, I think, have done a really good job of not just transforming the sales pitch, but taking that sales pitch story and using it in lots of different forms. So they use it in videos. They created a graphic novel, which essentially follows the sales pitch structure. So they've done a lot of really creative things. with their sales pitch story, so you can see it there. But do I have a community? No. I mean, I know them. Hello. But I think the book would probably be the best place to look at some examples if you want to try to figure it out.
Hi, I'm Nick from, I hear my own voice.
Yeah.
From Always Beta. I was here last year.
Ah.
Haven't bought the new book yet, but I...
It's only been 2 weeks. That's okay.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering, especially in terms of positioning.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're a company, you have your own current positioning, and then after you work with that company, they have a new positioning.
Yeah.
Is there a phase in the middle where you kind of test the new positioning with a subset of customers before opening up to all the other ones? And what are the dynamics of that testing?
Yeah, so handful of things to think about. So in my opinion, when we're building positioning, the best way to test it is to build a sales pitch and test it with qualified prospects. The reason I don't think it's a good idea to take the positioning and turn it into messaging and then A/B test it on homepages and stuff is you're just introducing too much noise. So now we're testing messaging, we're testing copywriting, we're testing page design, we're testing whether or not that traffic is any good, and I don't know, is it working with the right kind of people? If I do it in a qualified prospect call, I'm controlling for the customer, I'm controlling for a lot of things. If I just take my best sales rep, then I'm controlling for sales acumen. The thing in a sales pitch, we can try things different ways and kind of see what works. The other thing we can do is we can see how the customer is reacting. So we can tell if they're making a face like they're confused or if they're getting excited. And so usually what we do is we do the positioning, we translate it to a sales pitch, we pick one rep, we train the rep on the pitch so the rep is really good at it, and then we test it on qualified prospects, and what we're usually doing is tuning it for a few weeks. So we're doing test pitches, tuning, test, tune, and the pass-fail criteria is if your best sales rep at the end of that process says, this is a way better pitch than the old pitch, then you're golden. Then there's no reason that you shouldn't roll it out to the sales team because the pitch is better. And so if it works better there, it's going to work better in marketing too. A caution I would give you is do not test your new positioning on your existing customers. Your existing customers are polluted with the old positioning. So they're going to be like, who moved my cheese? You said you were a database. Now you're not a database. You're a business intelligence tool. What you want to do is test it on new prospects coming in because they're clean. They haven't been polluted with the new stuff, with the old stuff so much. Yeah, maybe they saw a bit of it in marketing, but they never had another pitch from you before. So it's a better test to test with a qualified prospect. If I go back to my existing clients, they know all kinds of stuff about your product that only a client would know. And so you can do the test, but I don't think you're going to learn anything about how prospects are going to react to this thing. Prospects are very different. They're a blank slate. They don't know anything about you. And this positioning has really got to resonate with prospects, so let's just do it with prospects. One of the things that people come to me, they'll say, but wait a second, what if we change the positioning and the existing customers freak out? And they're like, oh my God, we bought you to be a database, and now you're not a database, you're this other thing, and freak out. And you know how often that happens? Literally never. So customers don't care. The existing customers do not care. They're not on your website, they're not clicking on your stuff, they're not looking at your advertising, they already bought. So they're like, the only two things they care about is the price going up? If the answer is no, they're cool. And if you promise them something on the roadmap, and they're like, wait a second, Nick, you're saying you're this other thing. Does that mean we're not getting this feature? So you're going to have to figure out how to respond to that. But typically, if you're like, yep, the thing we promised you is still coming. Nope, the price isn't raised. They're like, fine. They don't care what your positioning is. They're not sitting around thinking about you all day at all.
All right, last question. Sorry about that. But April will probably be hanging around if you want to ask off the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Batul. I'm an interim head of marketing and also a consultant.
Great.
And my question is, how do you really convince the sales team to work with the new positioning and to really actually change their sales pitch? Because actually, I'm in marketing and I'm always trying to bridge the gap, but there are always walls around the sales team, and they refuse to really go into these things and work with this. Do you have any tips on that?
Oh, I have lots of tips on this. So I have lived this. So here's the first thing. Sales doesn't get marketing, but you know what else? marketing does not get sales. So it goes both ways. And so marketing will build these pitches and heave it over, and sales will be like, I don't understand it. I don't understand why this is here. I don't understand it. And you know what they love? Even though they won't admit it, even though they'll complain about it, they love the existing pitch. Because they're used to the existing pitch. They do it 59 times a day. They do a little joke in between slide 4 and slide 5. So they're all grooved on the existing pitch. And then you throw this new thing over and they're like, I don't know. And they might try it once and they'll be like, that feels all awkward. I don't get to tell my joke that I like on slide 4. So they don't like it. So if you just throw it over, it'll never stick. Never in a million years. So the better way to do this is let's back it all the way up to the positioning, because we can't build a good pitch if the positioning is weak. Almost everybody's positioning is a little squishy if we haven't looked at it in a few years. So what we do is we back all the way up to positioning and we say, look, we're just going to review the positioning and we're going to do a little exercise to go through the positioning and make sure it's good before we do the sales pitch. And you invite the head of sales to that. If the head of sales is there, now they start to understand your positioning because they've been involved with it. And if there's stuff they disagree with, now they got a forum to say, that's stupid. That's not what happens in it. Our customers don't care about that value. No, we never bump into this competitor. No, we whatever. So you actually want them in the room because they're full of good stuff. They're sitting there talking to customers all day. They actually know a lot. If they're involved in doing the positioning, now they're bought into the positioning because you've given them a chance to voice their thing. We're going to get agreement and alignment between marketing, sales, product on the positioning. Then you can say, okay, head of sales, next job is to take this positioning and turn it into a sales pitch. How about you and me do that together? And so it's not me heaving it over the wall. I got the head of sales with me. And so we're building this pitch. And then what we do is we say, okay, we're going to test it. Let's take the best rep. We're going to train the best rep. We're going to test it. And then once we're done that testing phase, now I got the best rep in the company is convinced, has told me this is a better pitch than the old one. So now I don't have to tell the salespeople it's good. Best rep goes back and says, look, dummies, don't be using the old pitch. This one's amazing. I know it's amazing. You want to be like me, right? I'm the best rep. And look at all these deals we have in the pipeline. We got them with that new pitch. And now I got sales talking to sales and everything works good. If you don't do it like that, the pitch will never stick.
All right, well, let's give it up for April Dunford being a great guest on the SaaS Revolution Show.
Yeah.
If you can't hear that, that's lots of clapping. For
clapping,
those that,
there's so much clapping. Because thunderous applause.
Yeah, all right, thank you so much, April.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the SaaS Revolution Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you learned something from it, check out SaaStock.com/events to find all the upcoming SaaStock conferences around the world.
Want exclusive SaaS content and actionable insights to grow your SaaS? Join our community of over 36,000 SaaS founders at SaaStock.com.